Hi everyone, I just wanted to go over something really quick with everybody. How did numbers of chapters and numbers of verses get into the Bible? Now, most people know that you can Google this, but there's a whole bunch of people out there in the Christian world that seems to think that those numbers were in there at the original writing. That is not true or accurate. It is a serious error. I will show you how and when that happens. See, here you go. All you have to do is Google it. But some people don't like Google, but that's okay. You'll find a whole bunch of different references, and there's probably going to be a lot of different opinions. So who divided the Bible into chapters and verses? Why and when was it done? So here's your answer. When the books of the Bible were originally written, they did not contain chapter or verse references. Of course, we already talked about this. The Bible was divided into chapters and verses to help us find scriptures more quickly and easily. It's much easier to find John chapter 3 verse 16 than it is to find for God so loved the world. In a few places, chapter breaks are poorly placed. As a result, divide content that should flow together. Overall, though, the chapter and verses divisions are very helpful. And they're right on this. For instance, there's all kinds of different places where there's like verses 1, 2, and 3 of say chapter 12 of a book that should actually be with chapter 11 instead of given new numbers. I mean, there's been a whole bunch of them, and what it does is it divides your mind when you're reading along. You come to a new chapter, you're thinking a new story, and you're misapplying the new verses to the message that was ending the last or the previous chapter. Anyway, the chapter divisions commonly used today were developed by Stephen Langton, an Archbishop of Canterbury. He put the modern chapter divisions into place around AD 1227. The Wycliffe English Bible of 1382 was the first Bible to use this chapter pattern. Since then, nearly all Bible translations have followed the chapter divisions that were given. The Hebrew Old Testament was divided into verses by a Jewish rabbi by the name of Nathan in AD 1448. Robert Estienne, who was also known as Stephanus, was the first to divide the New Testament into standard numbered verses in 1555. Stephanus essentially used Nathan's verse divisions for the Old Testament. Since that time, beginning with the Geneva Bible, the chapter and verse divisions employed by Stephanus has been accepted into nearly all Bible versions. So here we have it. We're going to go ahead and see other sources on this. This comes from gotquestions.org, but we're going to see more references or more examples. Even many in the church do believe that, it's not a matter of do believe, but it's factual that the verses and the numbers of the verses and chapters were not originally in those letters. We have somebody who's written there, where do verse and chapter numbers in the Bible come from? In the recent Bible reading is broken and it's not your fault. It was mentioned that the Bible reads somewhat differently if the verse and numbers are removed. But if the familiar verse and chapter numbers in our Bibles weren't part of the original manuscripts, where did they come from? Why do we use them? So again, Bible reading, people rarely give it conscious thought. Anyway, so the Old Testament's been organized into sections and subsections. The modern chapter and verse divisions generally, but not always, correspond to the traditional Jewish organization of the text. While Old and New Testaments have been roughly organized since the Bible canon was established, it wasn't until 1,000 years later that something resembling our modern chapter and verse system was widely accepted. Don't forget the Jewish way of writing. They always wrote poetically. They had the first letters of each verse or the first letters of each sentence had to be a certain thing because of their poetry assembly. That's how they did it. They did it in poetic form. Kind of like how we have not anagrams, but kind of like what ASAP is. ASAP actually means as soon as possible. So along that thing, I can't remember the word for it. But at any rate, the Jewish had started with the Old Testament that way. So Stephen Langton again is the one given credit for this. Also Robert Stephanus, and so how does it affect the reading of the Bible? It makes it easier to look up, kind of like the Dewey Decimal System for your library. So too is this for the Bible. But just so that everybody knows, the Bible originally written did not have these numbers in the verses and chapters. Okay? Please be clear on this. Please don't go around thinking or acting like those numbers were included at the onset. It wasn't. Jesus did not say chapter this, verse that, blessed are the poor, for they will inherit the earth. No, he didn't say that, because it didn't. That's not how it went. At any rate, just wanted to let you all know. I will be doing another video shortly, but getting ready for changes in the life and everything like that. So I'm sorry I haven't done any videos in the past week, but I'm getting back in it. Love you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Find your quantum connections at tfrlive.com.